It's Trailer Talk with the O Brother Podcast. Let's see if this trailer is treasure or trash. I'm
Can't
sitting
be
here.
unhappy with the banjo.
You got to love the Trailer Talk soundtrack there. I love that song. It reminds me of the days camping with Dad up in Maine. But Mike, we're back. We're doing a trailer talk. We're going to talk some trailers about Paul Thomas Anderson's new film coming out starring, this cast, when we get to this,
Yeah.
it's called One Battle After Another. The trailer just dropped. This film's due out September 26th, 2025. So, early fall, we'll be getting this one. Mike, runtime listed at 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Which is, the funny thing is this was like an untitled Paul Thomas Anderson film like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And although like Leo DiCaprio is one of the stars, the main star,
Sure.
he says something like, oh, it's always something after another, but I got to believe there's an intentional jab at the studio because they are fighting over runtime. Paul Thomas Anderson, known for long films, Magnolia, There Will Be Blood. He wants it at the runtime you just suggested. The studio wants to cut it way down.
Yeah, they probably want it like 230 max, I would imagine.
Max.
Max. So director, writer Paul Thomas Anderson, Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, stars a character named Bob Ferguson, Teyana Taylor, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Regina Hall. It's a pretty stacked cast. This was filmed in some parts of California, Sacramento, also El Paso, Texas. The premise here, the plot is when their evil enemy resurfaces after 16 years, a group of ex-revolutionaries reunites to rescue one of their own's daughter. And, right off the bat, the cast is what draws you in, right?
Yeah.
Filmed in VistaVision for those that are, wanting to devour kind of that widescreen experience, especially if you're looking to see it on the big screen. This would be one of those to do. Had a very cool piano score to this trailer.
Yeah.
And again, the sort of syncopation with
Right.
the way that it was edited, was really
And
nice.
we just talked about that in Blood Simple, which had a similar kind of soundtrack.
Right.
And talking about the director, Paul Thomas Anderson, this is his 10th film. 9 of his films, 6 have been nominated for the Oscar. So
it's incredible.
The fact that that's all he's put out, it's kind of Kubrick-ish. And he hasn't won an Oscar yet.
Right.
And he's been nominated 6 times. And There Will Be Blood, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, Boogie Nights. And one of my favorites, Hard 8, was his first film. Which
we talked about that off camera, yeah.
If you haven't seen that film, you can get it on like Freevee or wherever. And it stars Gwyneth Paltrow and John C. Reilly and a great character actor called Philip Baker Hall.
Yeah.
Which some people will know him as the book librarian from Seinfeld.
That's right. That's such a good episode. Yeah, the last film of his I've seen is Licorice Pizza, which I told you
that was nominated.
Didn't love it.
And very well received by critics. But I agree.
Boring.
I don't think it's on the scale of his other films.
Yeah.
But
one that you missed that I just purchased and added to my digital library, another Daniel Day-Lewis film. You didn't mention this one.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread, right.
I did. I didn't have it on my list.
Yeah, so that was one of them. He's got a lot of credits, but he's done a ton. He's continued to be busy over the years, like doing music videos and things like that, which is kind of interesting in and around his feature films. But yeah, it's very kind of Kubrick-esque, like you said, with, the limited resume with feature films. But, it takes time when he puts them out. They're solid,
And this film looks a lot like some of his others where it's quirky, like
Very
Punch Drunk
quirky.
Love.
Yeah.
There's some quirkiness in Magnolia, though that's mostly dramatic. Boogie Nights. But this seems to have more humor for him than normal.
It does. Yeah.
Or I get that sense from the trailer.
At least what we see from the trailer. Well, it's interesting you say that because now I'm curious. This is listed as dark comedy.
Okay.
It kind of have like I think of like Raising Arizona, that sort of
Yeah,
somewhat in that vein
that
almost.
vibe.
Yeah, it's got kind of got that vibe. So it's again the cast. I love Sean Penn.
And
Um,
we don't see him in the trailer except for one sequence where he's kissing a picture, but we
he,
don't see we I don't
no,
uh,
he's wearing fatigues.
right, he's in army fatigues and he's
Right.
kissing this picture, but I don't hear his voice.
Not
I
that
don't
I recall. He's not the one at the end that you is saying that line that's similar to the title though. Is that
I
him? I
no,
thought.
I don't think so. I think that was
Okay.
Benicio, but
Hmm.
he's when they list the credits at the end of the trailer, it's Leo and then Sean Penn.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm with the studio on this one though. I'm so done with these 2 hour, 50-minute runs, like 2 hours or less, two
Yeah,
hours or less, right?
and
If you
I
can't,
love his other films. I love There Will Be Blood. I love Magnolia, but
Mhm.
they are an exercise in,
Patience,
staying in front of a screen for a long time.
right? The cast and his resume, would be what would get me to. Again, I don't know that I'd go to see this in the theater. I'd probably wait till it's on streaming,
I just saw
But
a visitor behind you.
yeah, that's yeah.
But,
She's one of the supporting cast members.
the thing that I wonder about is how successful a film is this gonna be? Because although it's got those names, how big of a pull we talk about this, how big of a pull is Leo anymore? Sean Penn.
It's interesting you say because we've been talking about this recently, kind of off air, just when we're chatting,
Yeah,
and like we talked about it with Alto Nights because that tanked,
right.
and we did a trailer talk on that, and you get
Same
Robert De
studio,
Niro.
by the way.
Yeah, Robert De Niro, arguably one of the greatest actors of our time. I've always sort of argued somewhat overrated, but that's a controversial point of view.
Yeah,
But the generationally though, right? I mean, we're getting older, they're getting older. So even though like within our sphere, it's like, well, yeah, Leo, but now it's, Matt Damon and like any of these guys and these actors
right.
and actresses, this is a whole different generation. And that's an interesting thing to explore though, is looking at, and I'm sure that there's some data on it, but what are the trends at the box office in terms of age?
Yeah,
We'll have to look at that and maybe
yeah,
talk
who's
about that a little bit.
going to the film?
Right, because if it's our generation, which it probably is,
I would think, like, I
with
wanna see this. I watched the trailer, I was excited for it.
but that isn't gonna make this a half a billion dollar film or anywhere close to that. And what's the budget on this, Mike?
Like, over 100, like 111,000,000,
No,
somewhere around there.
it's estimated to be 130,000,000.
So that means to break even, it's gotta make 500,000,000.
That's probably what, 85% in salaries, I would guess,
Probably, and
with
his
this cast?
most successful film was There Will Be Blood,
Yeah.
but that made 76,000,000.
Although he's a filmmaker, I imagine that, certain stars might be willing to sort of negotiate their asking price to
Probably.
be in a film with him. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just guessing, but the trailer itself was pretty interesting. I mean, some pretty intense and well shot imagery of, again, these are revolutionaries they're talking about in sort of the current day, and there's some training sequences you're seeing out in the field where they're shooting these semi-automatic rifles
Yeah,
and
it
automatic
almost
rifles.
starts after I think there's Leo's on a phone call, which is kinda comical 'cause there's all these passwords he
Yeah,
has to give, and then it cuts to a young woman firing like an AK-47, 9 months pregnant, which is
right.
bookended at the end of the trailer with her very slim firing the same,
Mhm.
gun in the same
Right,
direction. So
right, right.
I don't know about you, it was hard for me to get a feel for the story in this trailer.
It was, yeah, it was a little bit. It was more about the visual, honestly, and just seeing the cast, who's starring in it or whatever. So, well, there you go. One battle after another. It's not due out till September 26th, so this will get some more hype before that time, certainly. given the cast and all of that. But
And we'll see what happens with the runtime and
yeah, and I don't know, with a budget that high and a runtime, even if it comes in at 230, is it going to make its money back? I don't know.
I doubt it.
I don't
I
know.
doubt it.
Yeah, time will tell. All right, it's going to do it for another trailer talk. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.